Welcome to Building Sustainability Podcast with me, your host, Jeffrey Hart, aka Jeffrey the Natural Builder. Every fortnight, join me as I talk to designers, builders, makers, dreamers and doers, exploring the wide world of sustainability in the built environment by talking to wonderful people who are doing excellent things. Hello and welcome to episode 92. This is part 2 of the Christmas special, all about the tiny house that I built with a snappy title of something like Biophilic Tiny House or The Natural Tiny Home, something like that. I haven't decided yet. Things to know about this episode are that there are definitely some swears and silly tangents that went on in this conversation. I actually edited out nearly an hour's worth of things that weren't quite suitable, but there are still a couple of sweary words, so if that's not good for little ears or sensitive dispositions, then do please not listen to this episode or the one after it. If you haven't heard part 1, listen to part 1 because they work best in order. This episode we are going to be talking about kind of details, airtightness, ventilation, power, heating, water. I should say up front that the chat about the solar, I am not a solar expert. I have done a fair amount of research. I don't fully understand it. And at some point I will get someone who knows loads about solar to explain all of this stuff really properly. So just bear in mind that what I say is opinion or my understanding of it. I think that's it. Enjoy the episode and enjoy guest interviewer Mike Hill.
This podcast, of course, is called Building Sustainability. And you
Hello.
are called Jeffrey the Natural Builder.
Yes.
So, clues in the title. Did you find a additional pressure on top of wanting to create like a tiny home that exemplified the practices and modalities and stuff that were ideal in building something like this, which is sustainable and good in modern building practices? Did you find, just by virtue of your own title, an extra bit of pressure? You, Jeffrey the Natural Builder, doing a sustainably built natural material home?
I don't know if I felt pressure. I certainly felt so there's a bit of a divide between the high-end building science world and the natural building world, in terms of sort of largely in terms of airtightness and how you achieve airtightness.
Yeah.
And the natural builders generally say a bit of natural ventilation is fine, and the sort of passive house building science people would say like build it as tight as possible. And I would have sort of taken on this airtightness thing more and more recently. And normally I would create an airtightness layer by plastering something with clay plaster.
Yes.
I didn't have any plaster going in this. This is a timber frame building where weight is really important. So I can't put a heavy layer of clay plaster.
And it's going to move.
Yeah, and it's going to jiggle its way down. Oh God, we're not thinking about that. Bouncing off trees and off tree roots and blah. So yeah, to achieve that high level building, I had to use a plastic membrane.
Yes.
And so actually I felt like I was sort of being a fraud to that Jeffrey the Natural Builder name.
I remember speaking to you about that at the time, actually.
Yeah. What did I say? Anything insightful?
No, just similar thoughts. Just like, I don't know how to get past this or step around this without using a plastic layer, and the feelings of what am I doing?
Yeah.
Involved in that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would say there's a lot of crossover. While the membranes that I've used are made of plastic, they are working in the same way as a clay plaster or a lime render, in that they are letting vapor pass through them and out.
Right.
It's not just a plastic sheet
No, so this is a vapor permeable layer.
Yes. And in fact, the internal layer is actually a smart vapor layer. Get ready for the science
Let's
bit.
go.
Where when it hits 70% humidity, up until that point, it is a vapor barrier. So it's like a plastic sheet.
Yeah.
When it hits 70%, which is like the danger percentage in terms of internal humidity, it's when sort of mold can start and things like that.
The danger wet.
The danger wet, vapor wet. At that point, the intelligent membrane then opens up and lets that through.
No shit.
Yeah, shit.
That's extremely clever.
It is really clever. It's intelligent.
It's smart. Bluetooth?
It's just got an aux.
Old school.
Yeah. So yeah, there was a difficulty there. Like I've used as much natural material as I possibly can.
Yes.
Anywhere that I could use natural instead of man-made, I have, with the exception of the membrane. And actually, it was a conversation with Chris Magwood, kind of when I was at the design stage, and he said, like, the amount of plastic you're actually going to use, it's probably less than all of your plumbing that you're going to do out of plastic pipe.
Yes.
And this one is going to make your building, 20% more efficient.
This is it, yeah.
So for a small amount of plastic, really efficient building. And if you think of 20% more efficient over like every time I fire the wood stove, if I'm using 20% less wood, that very quickly becomes a net positive.
I was just going to say, it's very much a net positive gain, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
it's on certain natural building forums, I'm not allowed to mention the membrane,
right?
Because they're so like no plastics, no nothing.
Yeah. This is the thing I would say in that regard. It's, again, maybe a controversial thing to say, but I think plastic, it can be a means to an end, and if it's the best performing material, and if you're using it in a small amount, if you're trying to actively use as little of that as possible, but if it is the best performing material, then it makes sense to use it.
Yeah.
If it's going to also improve the functionality and operation of everything else involved.
Yes, we need to be saving carbon emissions.
Yeah.
And if using a tiny amount of plastic to do that, I mean, this is the justification I've come up with. Yeah. And I think people listening might go like, no. It's how I've justified it. And if I didn't use that membrane in here, this would be a leaky building. And, the wind that was blowing through earlier with all that snow up to your knees, wasn't it?
Which I had to hobble through right up to my knees. It was possibly actually thigh deep.
Crikey.
Yeah, my thigh is only just thawing.
It's a Christmas miracle that you got here at all.
Yeah, it really, really is. The use of a small amount of plastic, it was going to benefit an overall design. And so, I mean, if you hadn't have used that, you'd be burning a hell of a lot more wood.
Yeah, exactly.
Which then adds a hell of a lot more carbon. And so, yes, on a sliding scale, I'm doing wobbly arm movement with one elbow going up and one elbow going down.
While doing a sort of wave motion with the fingers in the middle.
It's pretty sort of 80s. It's quite cool, I would say. But anyway, that's what I'm trying to say, listeners, with my arms. So that's good.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about, I've talked about a lot about airtightness.
Yes.
And I need to say something really important around that.
Let's go.
And that is, if you just build a really airtight box.
Yeah.
Were you about to ask this question?
I was.
Have I stolen your thunder?
Slightly, but that's okay.
Well, then you go for it.
It's your thunder.
No, please.
So what I was going to say is that we're talking
So what I was going to say is... No, go on, after you.
So, no, honestly, I insist. No, I'm doing it. So, we're sort of talking about the technologies, the chosen technologies involved in building a tiny home such as this. So, one of my first questions or doubts or lack of informations was, if you have a airtight building with triple glazed windows and doors, what happens to your oxygen?
Great question.
Thanks.
Yeah, if you just build an airtight box, then, well, eventually, if you were in here for long enough, you would run out of oxygen.
You would die.
You would die to death.
You'd proper be dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On a day-to-day thing where you'd actually be opening the doors and whatnot, you'd just be breathe. So every time you breathe out air and moisture.
Yeah.
Every time you cook something, say you're boiling some pasta, like there's a lot of water vapor is going up in steam. Right? If that moisture can't go anywhere, then it forms condensation.
Yeah.
You probably all know condensation on windows.
We've all seen it.
We've all seen it. We've all been there.
We've all been there.
Leave that long enough, you get mold. There's just been a tragic case in the UK of a kid dying from mold in his house. Moldy buildings are incredibly unhealthy.
Yeah.
And so we get into this thing where we want it to be as airtight as possible, to be as efficient as possible, but we need healthy air.
How do you avoid a sopping wet carbon dioxide pod?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the answer to that is MVHR, which is mechanically ventilated heat recovery. Imagine your bathroom fans.
Does it not mean Mike's Very Hot Wraps?
Do you want to do a very hot wrap?
No.
Go on.
I don't think so.
In your normal house, you've got those fans in the bathroom.
Yes.
And they blow out all the air.
Classic vent axia.
Correct.
Yeah.
So the MVHR I've got, it provides me with all of the fresh air I need. It takes out the humidity, and it does this by being a fan that blows inwards and then it blows outwards. And the really clever thing about it is that it's got a ceramic core, so that, say it's warm inside, so we're talking about like a nice winter warm inside scenario. Mm-hmm. As it blows the air out, the ceramic core heats up, essentially taking the heat out of the air. Mm-hmm. And then when the fan reverses and it blows air back in, nice fresh air back in, the air is dragged through that core. It retakes that heat back in again. Yes. And so there's actually very little kind of heat loss. Mm-hmm. So you're getting fresh air without heat loss.
Fresh air which is warmed. Very
fresh
clever.
Air warmed. It's not heating it, as in like it's not hotter than what was blown out.
Yes. But
you're mechanically recovering the MR.
Yeah, the MR and MR.
MVHR, mechanical ventilation heat recovery. So that's the heat recovery. I think there's a lot of, certainly in the natural building world, a lot of people that are very anti having fans in your house. And I think it's very strange because almost every house has like a kitchen extractor and a bathroom extractor, and they think that's fine. Mm. They know that humidity in the bathroom, when you have a shower, you make lots of humidity. When you cook, you make lots of humidity. They know that needs to be vented away. Mm-hmm. But the 8 hours that you're asleep breathing out moisture, like that's a huge amount of moisture. Probably equal to the amount of pasta you've cooked.
Yeah, an Olympic swimming pool's worth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
An Olympic paddling pool's worth.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of resistance to MVHR in the sort of more natural building world. But the stat that I heard that really sort of convinced me, if we were to just ventilate the air out, like blow it straight out, the energy that we put into the building in terms of heat, in kilojoules, that would be lost, gone forever.
Yeah.
To actually run these fans, they're so low wattage. All they are is a computer fan, essentially, blowing one way and then the other.
Right, yeah.
So the energy that is recaptured by running that fan is more than the cost of running the fan.
The fan itself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it is
So again, it's net positive.
It is we're back to net positive.
Good.
Did I explain that okay? I've really struggled about
I think so. And so do you have 2 fans?
Yes. Yeah. So you have to size the system according to your building. Generally, they do it by number of occupants. But in a building this small, it is a kitchen and it's a bathroom and it's a bedroom.
Yes.
So 2 fans, kind of at opposite ends of the building. I have them away from the bedroom because you can just hear it. It's like a very, very low whir.
Yeah, I've never noticed the sound of the fan.
I certainly, when I first put them in, I went from dead silence to a little tiny whir. And I was sort of sat here going like, oh no, what have I done? And then I plugged in my fridge.
I was going to say.
And you know how much I hate that fridge.
Yes, indeed.
And suddenly, once the fridge kicked in, I was like, oh, I can't even hear the whir. Can't even hear myself think. So.
I remember when I first had all of my electrics plugged in, and the battery charger, when you are plugged into an outside hookup for electricity, the battery charger was akin to a jet taking off. And I sat there, my brand new electric system just installed, feeling happy as Larry's, turning my lights on and off with gay abandon. And then the fan started, and I was just like, I rang the electrician guy immediately. It's like, what's this? How am I expected to live like this? This is insane. And it relatively quickly molds into the background.
Yeah, definitely. I think with these ones, because they blow in and then they blow out, there's that moment in between where the fan stops, and then you get a moment of genuine silence.
Yes.
And that, if anything, highlights the fact, like when a generator's turned off.
Yes.
And you suddenly go like, oh
God.
Oh, I didn't realise I was hearing that noise all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, that happens every 70 seconds, but it's not as bad as a generator.
Yes.
I was definitely skeptical when I first put it in. I was concerned, and now I think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And they automatically kick into like boost mode when the humidity goes above 70%. So again, that like danger zone.
Smart fan.
Smart fan. Yeah, like you.
Hey!
If you want a healthy indoor air quality, and that's, there's no point making a natural building if you're not going to strive for the most healthy indoor air quality.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think it is the way to go.
Can we talk about a mishap you had with the fans?
Yeah.
What happened there?
Early
days.
What happened?
So this fan system, by virtue, has to remain on in order to recycle air in and out of the building.
Yeah. What happened then? It coincided. One of the interviews I did with the podcast was with Gervais, who's a passive house designer.
Yeah.
And the offshoot was I was concerned about CO2 levels in the house.
Yes.
And so he sent me a CO2 monitor so I could check. And I wanted to know, like, can I run my fans at super low speed and still not have too high a CO2 level? Mm-hmm. And I plugged in the CO2 monitor and went to bed. And when I woke up, it was at something like 3,000 parts per million. And I think the healthy level is maybe downwards of 600, 700 parts per million.
Okay.
And I was like panicked. And then I realized that I'd unplugged my fans, my MVHR. And it was just like the perfect example of, why stagnant air, essentially you're breathing out carbon dioxide.
Sure.
You get groggy if there's too much carbon dioxide.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd forgotten about that. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah. So rule number 1, leave your MVHR fans on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now the electricians actually come and finished the wiring.
Ah, yes.
Eventually. It only took 9 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to finish it took half a day?
Yeah. If that. Yeah. Yeah. It was a slightly funny switch operated system before. And now it's all wired in.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely worth having fans.
So good, very useful, very helpful thing. Potentially controversial in certain circles, but
yeah,
a strong choice.
I don't want to bang on about it too much. I am banging on about it a lot. But if you just went for the natural ventilation, like don't put any air control in, then you have air leaking in every which way. And as we said, it's bypassing the insulation, so you're getting cold air coming straight into your building. And at those points is where you get warm air meeting that cold air.
Yeah.
That's where you get condensation. It's where you get mold. It's unhealthy. Like controlling the airflow. I can't believe I'm saying this after so many years of being like, we should make it airtight enough, but not so much that we need ventilation. Now I've seen what uncontrolled airflow does. And I tell you, actually, my bathroom, I've realised that there is a hole in the airtightness layer somewhere in the bathroom.
Right.
And there's a little bit of mould growing just up on the backsplash of the shower.
Yeah.
And I need to take off that backsplash, find the hole, patch it, and that goes away.
Yes.
But it's just that is where the cold air is coming through, and it's only come up in the last week. So the last week we've had minus.
It's been super cold.
Super cold.
Yes.
Minus super cold.
Yeah. -3, -4.
Yeah, consistently for a week.
Yeah.
And it's only appeared then. So yeah, it's a good reminder that this thing is important.
Case in point. Good stuff.
Did I just go real nerdy then?
Maybe, but that's good.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. Now we're arriving at the part. In fact, should we get a little? Would you like a vocation beer?
My goodness, yeah, I'd love a vocation.
Nice. Cheers to you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, do you know what we should do before we move on to the next? We should pull a cracker.
Oh, we should pull a cracker.
So I have secreted in these crackers a building-related joke.
Have you?
Yeah.
So have I think. Ready?
Yeah.
Ready? Hey!
Oh,
I lost.
I won.
Jeffrey won. Put your hat on.
It's a lovely purple crown.
Very good.
I know that everyone's going to hear that little wrinkling and know exactly what's happening. All right. Well, I've got the joke for you.
Okay, here we go.
What's the most annoying thing about carpenter porn? It's the ads about hot shingles in your area.
Amazing.
Should we do another one?
Yeah, let's do another one. Let's do it. I best get this hat, Jeffrey. Ready? Hey! Oh, I can't tell you. I mean, woohoo, I won. Right. We put on my Christmas hat. This is a navy blue number.
Lovely.
The joke is, a construction worker walks into a bar with a slab of asphalt. The bartender asks, "What can I get you?" The construction worker replies, "1 beer for me and 1 for the road."
Hey!
Oh, it's a Christmas miracle.
That's brilliant.
So, we are now... Well, we've now reached the part of the interview, and it is an interview, I'm going to say that again, which I'm most excited about, and that is the power/heating element.
Whoa.
Or as I like to call it, the nitty-gritty.
I'm going to edit on a bit where it goes dun dun dun.
Yeah, you absolutely should.
Like it's Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Yeah.
The nitty gritty round.
Nitty-gritty.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, hit me with the nitty gritty
So,
questions.
nitty-gritty. Power and heating, Jeffrey.
Yes.
Heating, I think that's more nitty. The power's more gritty. I feel
Shall
like
we start gritty?
Yeah, we all know what the heating is. It's a bloody log burner, isn't it?
Well...
Or is it? Coming back to that later.
Yeah.
So, the gritty, I think we defined it, was the power.
Yes.
So, this is a off-grid tiny home.
This is an off-grid tiny home.
One off-grid tiny home.
One off-grid tiny
Okay,
home.
so how the hell do you power it?
Well, I power it with the sun. Yeah, so... I don't know, we didn't talk about it necessarily at the beginning, but I will be moving this house into the woods,
Yes.
away from all power lines, off grid, totally off grid. And so I need to power it with batteries and solar. And that was a whole rabbit hole of... I put that off for as long as I possibly could. And then I think, was it when Russia invaded Ukraine? Not meaning to bring the mood down.
Yeah.
Christmas party and all that. The energy prices shot up at that point.
Yes.
And suddenly everyone was going like, of course, we should buy solar. We should buy batteries.
Yeah.
So I put it off successfully for about 2/3 of the build, knowing that at some point I had to delve into electrics and look at power consumption of all the things that I use and all this sort of stuff. And then suddenly I just felt like I had a week to design the system and get it ordered, because impending doom.
That's the way it goes.
Everyone wanting stuff.
Yep.
So I dived into it. It's complicated.
Yeah.
You essentially have to work out how much power you're going to use. So you have to look at every component. And this is for off-grid.
Yeah.
And off-grid is way harder. And if you cannot be off-grid, don't be off-grid.
Yeah.
By all means, or definitely have solar panels, but be tied into the grid. Because what I have to do is I have to work out my extractor fan for my my hob, my sink, charging my laptop, the lights. If I want to have, I've got an amp for playing music through.
Yeah.
All of the things, the MVHR.
Yeah.
All of these things take a little bit of power, and I have to calculate all of the power that's going to be used. Then I calculate all of the power that can be absorbed from the sun, and then that's 1 day's storage. And then you have to times it by 3, because the chances of not having any sun for 3 days are, in this country, relatively
So that's
high.
your up-specking it for the winter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And really what you need to do on an off-grid situation is to spec it for the darkest day. So we're just about at the end of December now.
Yes.
The days are at their shortest, the darkest, there's the least amount of sunlight.
Come on, the 21st.
Come on! I need to have enough solar panels in my array so that even on the darkest day it can charge my battery.
Yes.
Which means that for kind of 2/3 of the year, 3/4 of the year almost, I have got way too many solar panels.
Hugely overspec'd.
And I fill my batteries. Basically, the solar panels are creating electricity that is then just dumped.
The batteries are overflowing. It's like a bucket with electric water pouring out of it.
Yes, a great analogy.
Yeah, thanks.
No one minds water and electricity in this instance. So kind of it's really kind of a wasteful system.
Yes.
Like the best thing to be happening in that scenario would be that I'd be tied into the grid, and in all of those days when I'm got excess, I would be like powering my neighbour's house.
Yes. Yeah.
Even though they would be paying me like a pittance for what I was generating, but
And that's what solar panels do in a more sort of conventional house, isn't it? You can
Yes.
sort of sell back to the grid.
exactly a
Yes.
grid tied system.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's like anyone that lives on a street with the power grid. So yeah, I've recently been down a rabbit hole of what am I going to do with the excess power when I've got it.
Yes, indeed.
The first thing, really, really easy, is that I have a gas boiler system. So I get hot water on demand from a gas system. As soon as I've got too much power, it's going to divert the power from the solar panels into an immersion heater, heating a tank of water.
Yes.
So I will be using the overflow to heat water.
Yes.
Then I will always have hot water available.
Free hot water.
Free hot water, not using LPG.
And this is a prospective plan, isn't it?
This isn't happening yet.
Yeah.
Luckily, one of the jobs we've been doing
Yes.
is ripping out an old immersion heater. So there is one available.
And that's got Jeffrey's name written all over it.
In crayon.
Yes, indeed. And rust.
Yeah, it's old. Yeah. So that's one way I'll be using the excess power. Another way, so I've got a gas hob. Again, I don't want to be using LPG as much as possible. So I'll be getting one of those electric powered induction hobs that will just sit on top of my stove when the sun's out. So in summer, if I'm cooking my lunch, I'll be able to use the excess power just to do the induction hob. And
that'll be a direct from panel to hob type scenario?
Not quite.
Right, yeah.
It all goes through the clever system.
Yeah.
But if I was to try and run that system now, like the sun's gone down, it is dark, it's in the middle of winter, all I would be doing is rinsing my my batteries.
Yes.
Because they take quite a lot of power. Like boiling a kettle, for example, is 2,000 watts for my kettle. So boiling the kettle is a huge whack of power that would just be taking it from the batteries.
Yes.
If I boil the kettle when the sun's shining full, basically the batteries stay completely flat.
Yeah.
Yeah. No depletion.
On a plateau.
Yes, not flat.
As opposed to flat. Yeah.
No, flat is what you don't want.
Yeah. So they remain unaffected, as it were. The power's coming in off the top of it, off the top of the batteries.
Yes.
Into your kettle.
Yeah, the creamy froth on the head of the pint
remains unknifed.
Unknifed pint.
We'll be back after a quick break.
If you're looking for all things BMX racing, you found the right podcast. Here at Lane 8 BMX Podcast, I'll speak to the local racer, the national racer, and even the Olympic level racers. I'm talking kids to the weekend warriors and much more. So get comfortable, turn up the volume, and remember to snap on green.
You know, you get like you're frothing like
like in a
Belgian bar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm totally with you now.
Yeah, I remember on my setup in a van, we recently, maybe 2 months ago, added a solar panel to our setup. But prior to that, we were just on external hookup into 230 volts, which means you could run anything off the sockets. And then occasionally, if not, we were just either using a split charger or just using the capacity of the batteries to use our LEDs or whatever. And one day through our inverter, I thought, I'll give boiling the kettle a go, see how that goes. And I flicked the kettle on for a moment, and there was this unbelievably high-pitched beep from the inverter. I fucking very quickly turned that kettle off. It was like, shit, I hope I've not damaged that too much.
No, there's cutouts that stop that.
Nothing happened, but it was a scary little moment.
Yes.
Like electrics that make high-pitched noises, generally speaking, that's a bad thing.
No, don't want that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole world, and it is a complicated thing. If you are, if you're thinking you need to be off-grid, there are lots and lots of things online to sort of help you. There's sort of spreadsheets so that you can go through and list all of the things you're going to use, and they'll sort of guide you through, like, you need all of this, so you need this much power. That means your batteries need to be this big.
Yes.
Etc. Etc.
Something which I used was Bimble Solar.
Nice, they're great.
Bimble Solar, the solar calculator on there. You can. They've got a self-populating chart, and you add what your appliance is, what is wattage is, how many hours per day you're going to use it. Put all of your bits in there, and then you can select to overspec it by 50%. They suggest 50 to 100% for the winter months, for those couple of months, December, January, when there's the least light, and that'll tell you what battery array you want and how many pedals you want.
Goodness, it was hard work, mate.
Yes, I can only imagine. I was trying to spec it for my tiny van, which has a fridge and some lights. It seemed almost impossible to do. It doesn't seem like there is one straight answer, because there isn't, because each answer relies on too many other variables.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what I would say is there's various people selling kits online. Go to them and get them to spec you an actual system that's based on your requirements.
Yeah.
And generally, the prices that they're putting online that people would just buy kind of off the shelf
Uh-huh.
are more inflated than what they can actually do.
Yes.
If they design you a system specifically for you,
Mm-hmm.
then you're going to get a better price.
Yes. Yeah. That's it. In terms of advice, I would say big ups to Wind and Sun in Leominster. Very helpful solar power company. Got all the information, know their gubbins. Check them out if you are in that area.
Yeah, and I used Energy Monkey. Lovely chap called Paul. I think he's in the Gloucester area.
Cozy Paul.
Cozy Paul.
Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, Cozy Paul. Yeah, he was really great for me.
You lost your hat when you tossed
Did I?
your head backwards there in laughter. Solar. Do you want to go deep on this or not?
Let's go medium deep.
Go medium deep. Okay, so all right.
What's your question?
We've spoken broadly about solar and the solar requirements for your tiny home. How many panels have you got?
Hang on, Chunky Benjamin wants to...
Chunky Benjamin wants out again.
Sorry, Chunky Benjamin.
Go on, mate. There we go. Good boy.
Start the question again.
Just a couple of moments. So, yeah, we've spoken about solar power and the tiny home. I want cold, hard facts.
Great.
So, 6.5 by 2 and some meter tiny home. Yeah? Mm-hmm. How many panels have you got? What sort of batteries have you got? What brand system have you gone for in general?
Okay. So, because I'm doing a model of... I've gone for Victron. Who,
Very nice.
yeah. They are... I mean, they're sort of I think they're one of the industry standards.
They appear to be the industry standard to
Yes,
me.
they're all the sort of blue, very specific blue colour. They don't make a sort of all-in-one box. There's a lot of cheaper alternatives that are like the battery charger, the solar controller, the inverter, all in one box. Mm-hmm. And I almost went for one of those, and then I started reading some of the reviews, and people were saying like one component of that had broken, and then their whole system had gone down.
Right, yeah.
And the joy with the Victrons is that they are all individual components. So if your solar controller goes down,
Yeah.
you can swap that out.
Yeah. And that's not affecting your inverter,
Exactly.
etc., etc.
Yeah. So it was definitely more expensive, but I feel like it's an investment in the future.
Yeah.
And it's upgradable as well. Like if down the line I find that, I'm not actually getting enough solar power, I could add in more components.
Yes.
And it would all fit in together. Those sort of one size fits all systems are kind of limited, and they're good for certain situations, but they don't have expansion as one of the
and that comes back to that sort of buy once, spend slightly bigger, buy once, future proof yourself.
So I've got initially I got 10 panels, and then they recommend that you have a generator backup.
Yes.
So that when you're in the woods, if you have like a week of real gloomy days, you can fire up the generator. And I am trying really hard not to burn fossil fuels.
Yeah.
So I thought the cost of a generator is actually kind of about 500, 600 quid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why don't I spend 500, 600 quid on more panels? Mm-hmm. So I've got 15 solar panels.
15.
It's ridiculous.
Count them.
I mean, they are, if you line them up, it's basically 3 times the length of the house. Mm-hmm. I haven't actually got them all set up at the moment. I've just got 10 set up. And the hope is that should mean that even in the darkest days, I am powered through and I won't have to rely on a generator.
Yes. Yeah.
But Just if you don't have to be off grid though, don't be off grid, because you can have 5 panels and for like 80% of the year be fine.
Yes.
And then for that 20%, you just take a little bit from the grid.
Yeah.
You know, if you've got that option, take it.
Yeah.
That's mine.
This is a very specific requirement based upon your entirely off-grid desires and goals.
Yes. Yeah, the necessity. If I want to live in the woods, there isn't power.
Yes.
Other than what I bring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Okay. And so finally then, so if you've got your 10 to 15 solar panel array, what wattage are those solar panels?
What?
Yep.
Pardon?
What are those? What?
What?
How many watts have you got in your watts?
So there are 390 watts per panel times 15.
That's a total of
4.5 kilowatts.
4.5 kilowatts in total on 15.
Yeah.
And so finally, the most important question, what battery array do you have?
So I've gone for lithium ion.
Very nice.
Yeah.
There's another massive chunk out of the old wallet.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah. So lithium ion batteries cost an enormous amount of money. Why spend more money over AGM / liquid acid, etc.?
Yes.
Lead acid.
So lithium ion have a much better depth of discharge rate. So the batteries I've got, you can take them down to 15% charge.
Yeah.
Actually, no, sorry. The batteries I've got, you can take them down to 5% charge and it won't be degrading the battery.
Yeah.
Whereas a lead acid battery, basically as soon as you take it past fully charged, the battery starts to degrade.
Yeah.
So the thinking is that the lithium ion battery should last 10, 12 years, whereas your lead acid will only last a few years.
Yeah. And a lead acid battery is safe to discharge to about 50, 60%. If you start discharging it below that, I mean, it's safe in inverted commas. It's as you say, anything below 100% is starting to detriment. Anything below 60 to 50% is fucking that battery up royally. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll die very quickly.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, does it justify the extra money? If you're talking about it purely in financial costs, like, you can buy a lead acid for probably about £100.
I think mine were like 150 each for like 130 amp hours.
Yeah.
Which is really just 65 amp hours. Because you can't take it below 50%.
Oh, right. Yeah. 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 I don't know. I really don't know. Many times I feel cheated by my system that what I had on the boat was really, really basic. Lead acid battery, solar panel. It was really simple and really basic.
Yeah.
And I've spent a huge amount of money, and it sort of seems like the more money you spend, the more things that come with it that then drain the battery.
Yeah.
And it's like the bigger then you have to make it.
Yeah. But I suppose the argument is that you have to buy fewer of them. Like, you can more cheaply replace lead acid batteries, but
exactly,
you're buying more and more and more of them, whereas this is a more sustainable, inverted commas, method.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
But, lithium is not...
This is the issue. That's where the
it's
inverted commas
mined in pretty bad conditions.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
It is not the perfect solution.
Yeah.
And I talked to Chris Magwood about this, and I said, the rare metals that are in solar panels or in batteries aren't good for the environment to be mining. They're not good for people.
Yeah.
In terms of sort of sustainability, they're quite bad.
Yeah.
And his response was, they are the best we have at this moment, and the hope is that we will develop better in time.
Mm-hmm.
And at the moment they are still doing good, but balance wise it's not so great.
Yeah.
In the future it should be.
Yeah. This is the least worst.
The least worst.
Yeah.
And then we become the best, hopefully.
Precisely.
Yeah. But I don't know. If I was specifying a solar system, I don't know. The best easiest thing you can do, or the best thing you can do, is reduce your demand.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think, living small does that anyway.
This is it exactly. You realise that in the wintertime, certainly in our van with one little 400-watt panel, you realise that actually you're going to have to watch less Netflix in the winter. You can't charge your laptop
fewer
as much.
Netflix.
Yeah, watch much fewer Netflix, and have your fridge on a minute amount, if at all, an hour or two a day.
I often wonder that, like, is a fridge, if you turn off your fridge, doesn't it then just have to work harder when you turn it back on again?
Yeah, it's diminishing returns for sure.
Is it better to leave it on all the time?
But with ours, no. With ours, it would have rinsed it off the batteries within a day and a half.
Yeah.
So if you could just pop it on for like an hour or two, again, it's diminishing returns. It's just you're getting a little bit of cold. And the next day you're getting a little bit less. But it's winter. Leave your food outside.
The outside fridge.
All right then. So we've moved on from the power now. We've been in that off, yeah.
Yeah. Do we want to talk heating? Let's talk heating.
Yeah, I was going to say heat. So you didn't just say the magic word, did you?
Nope.
Good. So predominantly your heating is obviously from the wood burning stove.
Correct.
But that's not all, folks.
No. So when I was designing it,
Uh-huh.
I wanted to make it sort of future proof. Yeah. At the moment, it would be incredibly expensive for me to buy the solar setup needed to run electric underfloor heating in this house. Maybe in the future the price will come down, or maybe in the future my house won't be parked in the middle of the woods. It is on wheels. It might be parked somewhere else. It might be parked somewhere with an electric hookup. So I have popped in underfloor heating under the wood floor. Hopefully at one point I'll be using that. And the idea between that is, obviously, like, wood is really great because it's a replenishing source. The trees I cut down are resprouting because they're all mostly British native hardwoods. So they're regrowing. I'm basically coppicing them.
Closed cycle.
It's a closed cycle. What that doesn't take into account, though, is the air pollution that is created both outside and inside. Like, if you have an air quality monitor in your house, every time you open the door of your stove, your air quality just plummets. The particulate matter that comes out of your stove, like the ash, the dust in there, is not good to be breathing.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of articles on that in the last few years, hasn't there?
Yes, especially in cities where, like, loads of people are burning wood. The air outside of people's houses when you're walking down the street is pretty toxic. So the ideal thing is to move away from burning anything, whether that's gas, whether that's wood. And so if we can be making electric heat in the building generated from solar panels, that is a much more healthy system for all involved. So I put underfloor heating in. I turned it on once when I had a hookup. And it was weird, actually, because it was sort of not really that recognisable.
I remember you saying,
It was underwhelming. When you're used to a wood-burning stove that, like, smashes you in the face with some heat and warms up the whole space that way. Underfloor heating is a very, very low-grade background.
It's a little tickle of heat in it.
Yeah, and I was a bit like, is that it?
I remember you saying you wanted to come back and lie on the floor and be almost levitated by the heat. And it was just not that cold.
Yeah, exactly. I was just comfortable.
Boring!
Yeah, exactly. So it's a bit of a funny one.
Yes.
And I guess, the hope is that when, on those days, sort of spring, the shoulder season, sort of spring, autumn, when that's a snowboarding term.
That's a new phrase to me.
Oh, the shoulder season.
The shoulder season.
Yes.
Yeah.
Obviously, winter and summer, they're the big deal.
The back or the chest?
Yep.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, when the hope is when I'm in those shoulder seasons, when there's still enough sunlight to create excess power, but it's maybe a bit chilly,
Yeah.
I might crack on the.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be few and far between. I think it's just future proofing.
Yes. Well, so that's something I suppose you'll see how effective that is as you move forward, won't you?
Yeah, I mean the thing I was thinking of, and in this frame of mind of like making it the model of sustainability, that seems really wanky now. I'm saying it out loud quite a lot.
Get it said.
Is that it is the way we want to be doing things.
Yeah.
If you can entirely electrify your heating, that is much better than burning things.
It's like the people's elbow was the most electrifying move in sports entertainment.
It is just like that.
Yeah.
Is that Dwayne The Rock Johnson?
That is Dwayne The Rock Johnson. I'm so glad we managed to pop that in there somehow. All right, so we've hit on power and heating.
Yeah.
No problem. The other resource, of course, is water. What about your water, mate?
Right now, where I am, before I move, I have a delicious water pipe.
Ooh, yes, you do.
That only just become unfrozen after a week of sub-zero temperatures.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was able to wash a glass for the first time today. What a treat. When I'm in the woods, I will be capturing the rain off my roof.
Yes.
This is quite a small roof. When I spoke to the companies that do rainwater catching, they were like, it's a family of one household.
Yeah.
It needs this much water. And they said, your roof is too small.
Right.
I don't use a lot of water. Like
No.
having lived on the boat where we had a water tank, like when I do washing up, it is like a little dab of water,
Yeah.
get it done.
Yeah.
I'm not, there's very little wastage.
Yeah, you're not filling up a sink and...
God, no.
Yeah.
And when people come round and I just see them like turn the tap on and just leave it, and it's like, oh, what are you doing with it?
Yeah.
What? So yeah, I think, and I don't have a washing machine. I don't have a dishwasher. I don't.
You don't have a dishwasher?
I do have a bath, which is pretty luxury in terms of water. But yeah, I think what I will probably do when I'm in the woods is have a shelter, an extra sort of shade shelter that is also collecting water.
Yeah.
And then, there's a whole sort of process of filtering the water through finer and finer grades of filter.
Yeah.
And then it goes through a UV filter at the end. So you take out all the particulate stuff,
Yes.
finer and finer and finer, and then it gets blasted with UV, and that kills all the bacteria. Then I don't think they always stop just shy of calling it drinking water.
Right.
I'm probably going to drink it.
Yeah, that's drinkable, isn't it?
I mean, I'll soon know.
Time will tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm drastically unwell, then I will know. But I mean, I could also have a system where I just boil that water.
Yeah.
And that would definitely, absolutely kill it.
That's an interesting thing I've discovered since being here, living here for the last month, and myself and my partner Lucy, we basically function off a 5 litre bottle of water pretty much per day, maybe 4.5 litres per day. And that's every cup of tea and coffee, which especially if I'm not working in the day, if it's the weekend, that's quite a lot of teas and coffees, and all of the washing up and everything else, the cooking for pasta and whatever else. Yeah, it's about 5 litres a day max. Now 5 litres is actually a minuscule amount of water, traditionally speaking, conventionally speaking.
Yeah.
If you think
Anyone that lives in a house,
you live in a house, if you think about a toilet cistern, that is
it's not
way
even
more than 5 litres.
one flush.
Yes, it's more than that.
Yeah.
8, 9, easily.
so, yeah.
If you think about the 5 litre bottle of water you get, and you put that next to a cistern, it's ludicrous. Ludicrous. That's a toilet joke.
Well, I think I saw a thing where if you put in a compost loo,
Yeah.
instead of flushing your piss and your shit away,
Yeah.
and it just, goes into a container,
Yes.
I think you save 30,000 litres a year, or like the average family toilet.
I can only imagine. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that is an incredible amount of water.
An insane amount of water. Yeah. Doesn't seem real amount of water.
And all of that water has been treated to make it drinkable. So it's gone through like this system. That water that's flushing your shit away is drink quality water.
Yeah. Yeah.
The only thing that's different is that it's coming out of the toilet rather than the tap. It's like the same quality, the same process that's gone to make that good.
I remember when I first realised that there wasn't separate water fees into a house for hot water, cold water, and bathrooms and kitchens. I was always told that you shouldn't drink the water from a bathroom tap.
Right. I think I was as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I still slightly believe it. There's not two different feeds.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
Because I used to drink the water from the cold tap in the bathroom, hoping I'd get ill so I didn't have to go to school.
It's a legit thing, right? Good, I'm glad.
Yeah.
I was staying in a place in Oxfordshire for like a month or two back, and I was like doing a job there and living in this very sweet little Victorian children's bedroom thing. It was fucking pretty terrifying but gorgeous. And
was the sweet little Victorian child there?
The Charles weren't there, no. The Charles were nowhere to be seen, thankfully. But I went and got fish and chips from a place, and I got a can of something awful. And then I had just had my empty can of something awful in my room, and I was like, I need some water. So I filled up my empty can of something awful with the water from the bathroom tap, and then sort of paused for a couple of moments before drinking it. Like, is this drinking water? I was like, yes, of course it is, you fucking idiot. And I'm still here today to tell the tale.
Crikey.
It speaks volumes, I
What's
think.
left of you?
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty decrepit. It's like missing most fingertips. But that's just my chisel work.
There we go. We are 2/3 of the way through the Building Sustainability Christmas special chat about my tiny house. I hope you are enjoying it as much as Mike and I enjoyed recording it. Once again, I'm terribly sorry if you are listening to this not at Christmas. It's probably quite annoying to hear people opening Christmas crackers, but maybe not. Maybe it's a welcome break from whatever nonsense is happening in the future that I can't possibly imagine yet. I wanted to say a huge big shout out to the team at Kind Supply. They are based in Lewes near Brighton. They have sorted us out with a load of hemp insulation, and they are just incredibly helpful and happy people to work with. Really, really professional. Great service. I will be getting my insulation from them from now on. I will put a link to them in the show notes because they are great. Also, with this episode, we're talking about the times when we've got excess power. So I've been reading up on what I can do with that excess power, and people have been suggesting things like mining Bitcoin. I'm definitely not going to do that. But there's a really interesting idea to have two ponds, one at the top of a hill, one at the bottom of a hill. And when you've got excess power, you pump water from the bottom pond to the top one. And then maybe if you have lots and lots of dark days or your solar goes down or something like that, you release the top pond down a tube that goes through a micro hydro generator, and that can create you electricity when there's no sun. So you're essentially using your excess power to charge a sort of physical battery in the form of potential energy. So that's one thing I could do. People have suggested maybe using the excess energy to compress gas, because compressed gas is a thing that is a valuable product. I'd be interested to know what other people think. If you've got any suggestions, get in touch, maybe leave a comment on the Building Sustainability Facebook group. I look forward to hearing your thoughts. As always, there are loads and loads of links to go with this episode. Check them out. Links to other podcasts that we've done, links to the products we've talked about. There'll be a link to the Kind Supply lot. And finally, just if you can share this episode and you're enjoying it, then please do. It really helps. All right. On to the next part of this 3-parter. We'll see you next time. All the best.